Information and Broadcasting Ministry's new guidelines say that journalists will lose government accreditation if they act in a manner prejudicial to the country's security, sovereignty and integrity. This as per the Central Media Accreditation Guidelines 2022. Withdrawal is also liable in case of any relation to contempt of court or defamation. Accreditation can also be suspended if a journalist or the media organization is found to have furnished false or forged information and documents. This is extremely important for the journalist fraternity. Conditions have been laid down now clearly on what conditions journalist accreditation can be withdrawn. Let me go across to Mr. John Dayal from the Editors Guild, who's a member of the Editors Guild, joining us on the program. Good evening, Mr. Dayal. What do you make of these new conditions that have been laid out? Very specific points made on the conditions under which journalist accreditation can be withdrawn.
I am a member of the Editors Guild, but it's for the president of the guild to make a statement to the Secretary General. But I am an accredited journalist for 45 years or so. And before that, for 5 years, accredited to the Delhi administration. So in all, I've been accredited for almost half a century. And the government has a right to form rules to accredit journalists. I mean, it's not a license to journalism. You can be a good journalist without ever being licensed. You can write. But the accreditation was to facilitate access to government information, to the ministries, to the Prime Minister, to various places. It was an access.
Yes.
And there could be rules. There could be rules. I would have no problem in having rules if the rules were something that the government understood and the correspondent understood. And that is where the problem is here. If a journalist is anti-national, if he's planning a bomb or an assassination, he should be in jail. He has no business being a journalist. But how do you define anti-national activity without specifying? Is criticizing the Prime Minister anti-national? Is criticizing the government anti-national? It could be anti-national to steal data from the government and sell it to Pakistan or to the British. That I could understand. But how do you define? It is not quantifiable. And that is where the problem is. Something which is not quantifiable can be interpreted any which way, can be used to corner journalists, to reject them, to whatever, to
Yes.
manipulate them. And that's a Damocles sword hanging on the correspondent.
Do you also have any sort of apprehension on the specifics of the conditions laid? For example, if a journalist is found to threaten or write anything prejudicial to the sovereignty, integrity of the nation. Now, on the face of it, it sounds fair. But do you think a lot is left to interpretation, Mr. Dayal?
No, as I was saying, these are not things which are quantifiable. For instance, in an India-Pakistan situation, in a tension, in a diplomatic thing, can you not report both sides of the picture? Do you always have to only report what the government of India wants to do? What about a foreign correspondent who is also accredited to the government of India? Would the rules be the same for him? What about an Indian who works for a foreign journal? What would be the rules? So there is a lot that is left to the imagination of the committee,
Yes.
which is there, and it is not quantifiable. 2 + 2 must make 4.
Yes, absolutely. In that sense, many journalists would perhaps agree with you that how do you actually spell out, or what would be the exact contours? And that, again, would lead to a lot of debate and discussion. Thank you so much, Mr. John Dayal, for joining us this evening. Let's take a short break here. News and updates continue on the other side. Stay with us.